If he were traded to San Francisco, how much of a gap would Julio Jones put between the Hawks and Niners? And I based it off of a wins above replacement kind of method. Not at all. 1 game, 2 games, 3 games, or more. Murph responded it would make a pretty decent gap, but not an enormous one because it takes 2 to dominate. Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't have that ability to do it. Corey, meanwhile, is a little bit more frenetic about the possibility, saying probably a 3 to 4 game gap. But then I put the poll up, and a lot of you guys think that it won't make a difference at all. 41%. I guess I'd ask those same people if you feel that way about San Francisco trading for Julio Jones, upgrading that wide receiver core, then you should feel that same way about the Seattle Seahawks. Should they add Julio Jones? I put a piece up at 710sports.com last night listing all of the many reasons that I think it would be a mistake for the Seattle Seahawks to trade for Julio. I think that you're putting too much money into the wide receiver position. I think that it's sometimes difficult to make a wide receiver who's been a 1 elsewhere to fit in on a team where there are 2 guys who could be number 1 wide receivers in different locations. I have serious questions about his hamstring injury. It's a long list. They're prioritizing running the football more effectively. Is that going to help them? Sure, maybe the first half of the season down the stretch. If you think that Jeremy Fowler's report about the San Francisco 49ers potentially being the favorites to add Julio Jones is correct, and you think that it's not going to make much of a difference, you should feel the same way about the Seahawks potentially doing it. I actually have another reason, by the way, why I think it would be a mistake for the Seahawks to trade for Julio Jones. If you're Julio, you signed a really big contract back in 2019. It was a $66 million contract. $64 million of it was guaranteed. But pretty much all of the guaranteed money on that contract, it's done after this coming season. And if you're Julio, you get traded elsewhere, are you just going to play? Or are you going to look at your contract and say, rip it up, I want a new one right now? Wide receivers have ego. He's a wide receiver. He probably still thinks he's one of the league's best. And even with $15 million or so guaranteed for this coming season, I'd be shocked if Jones doesn't push for a final contract before playing a single game for whatever team trades for him. I think if I'm Julio Jones, I want to be respected as the number 1 wide receiver in the game again. DeAndre Hopkins, on a per-year basis, makes more money than me. I've got $2 million guaranteed left on this deal after this coming season. I'm the Julio Jones. I don't care that DK Metcalf is in Seattle or that Tyler Lockett's in Seattle if I were traded there. Or if I were traded to Los Angeles, I'm the number 1 guy. If I'm traded to San Francisco, I'm the number 1 guy. I want to be paid again at age 32 like the number 1 guy, especially given that there are some hamstring concerns about him going forward, some injury concerns. He's 32. He's going to be 33 in February. These are things that I feel like are things that Seattle should be aware of. Should they pull the trigger on a deal? Honestly, things that San Francisco should probably be aware of. I disagree with the response. I do think that San Francisco adding Julio Jones probably would help San Francisco be even better than you. Then, by the way, I think they already are. I think when they're fully healthy, they are a more complete team. And yes, they might not have a quarterback anywhere close to Russell Wilson, whether it's Jimmy Garoppolo this year or Trey Lance down the road. But that team made it to a Super Bowl, split the season series with you in 2019 when it was fully healthy. Good defense, good enough offense. Team that can run the football no matter who is behind their quarterback in Jimmy Garoppolo.